Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living. My name is Gary.
This is my backyard. For about 3.5 years I've been growing vegetables out of it. This is chard. So what we're going to be doing today is making chard dish.
Alright, these leaves came from my garden. It looks like a lot of leaves. I mean, it's a huge amount. But when it thins down, you have to think about it this way. When you cook fresh spinach and you're thinking you've got this big, luscious package of leaves, spinach leaves, and then you find out after you've cooked it, it cooks down to about a cup. It's the same thing with chard. Now we're not going to put any of the stems in. I use that for stock. But we are going to cook all the leaves, and then we're going to also cook some onions with it. Come and see how we put this together. I think you'll find it interesting, and I hope that you use this in your family.
Welcome to Healthy Vegan Living, a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
Alright, the first step is to be able to, for example, this one here is to cut the big stems away from the leaves. We want to strip the leaves from the center stem as well. That's going to take some time. No butter, no oil. So we're going to get started on separating this off. The one thing I have a little twist about is I'm also going to be putting in some of the seeds from the chard and seeing if that adds any kind of flavor to it. Might be kind of fun. They're also edible too. So I have lots of seeds, so we'll see. We're going to add that into it. And my goal here is to make my chard sides. In other words, I always like to have something a little different on my plate along with my potatoes or my rice or other vegetables that I'm eating. And it's just nice to have something that's grown from my garden. Yes, okay. We'll get back to work now. So if you have a sink like mine, fill it with water. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your leaf, this one, you're going to leave alone, we're just going to put it in. Cut the stems, put them in the sink. This is a little different. I save the stems and I make them to make broth out of it, because I do use a lot of vegetable broth. So it's going to be like this for quite a bit of time. All of the chard came from my garden. It took me over 2 hours to process and clean the leaves for this meal. Now, we're gonna go right into it so that you know what you need. You're gonna need a way to wash your leaves. This is your solid spinner. You're gonna need a giant pan because it's gonna be a lot of liquid that we're making. The reason I'm doing this is because I wanna have some left over. I have to change my garden around, and I'm not gonna have chard in our garden right now, as in preparation for a moving day in the future. But for right now, we have lots of chard growing in the yard, and I want to come up with some interesting recipes so I can show you. We're also going to be using nutmeg, fresh nutmeg that will be ground. This is basil leaves, we'll be using that. Thyme, Himalayan sea salt, granulated onions, I buy this at Sam's Club. This is Contadina, Roma tomatoes, and they're diced. You'll be using garlic with the onions. You're gonna need 2 large brown onions. I'm going to add some bell peppers to the mix. And then while the onions are being cooked on the stove top, very after they become translucent, we're gonna put my own marinara sauce in it. You'll need about 44 ounces of that. Okay, so we're gonna go right now to the stove and I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with these onions. All right, so the next thing we do is, I've got 2 onions in here, they're translucent, but I'm going to add to it some cloves. All right, you also, like I said, you'll need a standard flipper. And we're gonna do these. I had a head start on these. It takes a long time to cook onions. As soon as your onions are ready, put in your diced tomatoes. Now, diced tomatoes have salt in them. They usually have sea salt, so don't add any more salt to your meal. You want to add this liquid because the chard needs liquid to cook in. All right, just as a twist, I thought what I would do is add some bell peppers to it. So we're going to start putting in the chard as I cut up the bell peppers. Bell peppers will just add a nice sweet taste to it. Okay, so this is the first bag of chard. I'm going to show you how it looks like. And you're saying to yourself, that's never going to cook. You're never going to get 5 bags in that. Let me tell you, chard just shrinks like nothing. It's just like spinach. I don't want that leaf anyway. You start putting in your chard in, and you take your spatula, your flipper, and you start burying it underneath the onions and the tomato sauce. You're going to do this over and over and over again until all of the chard has been taken care of. I've done many stews with chard, and and I'm making a huge mess. I just started. While this is happening, while it cooks down, then we'll start cutting in our bell peppers and we'll put it in there. Just gonna add a little color to it. I'm using a red and an orange bell pepper. Right before it ends, we'll add our herbs to it, and that'll be it. Then what we'll do is we'll bag it up and we'll save it for other meals throughout the week. Nothing is wasted that way. All right, so that you see what's going on, this is that one bowl I showed you, the first bag. This over here is my own marinara sauce, and right now I'm over half of the bag full. How do you know when your chard is ready? You see how bright green it is right now? It will turn a darker green when it's finished, just like spinach when it's cooked. It changes colors. You can already see over here some of it
that is darker green. All right, so it's gonna be like this. It's gonna take a little bit of time, but within 15-20 minutes we'll go to the next bag and we'll just continue doing this, and then eventually we'll have all the bags in here. What I do sometimes to make it a little faster, I cook the chard in another container and I incorporate it in. But I use this on top of my other flash frozen vegetables, and it gives me another way to be able to stay vegan, stay away from oil, and continue losing my weight. Only like 5 more pounds to go before I hit 180 pounds, and I'll be really happy when that happens. Okay, so that's the first bag. Now if you're curious, I have filtered water in my home, and I washed it 2-3 times using the salad spinner. I'm spilling it all over the place. And that's what I did. But if you don't have filtered water, whatever water you use to drink will be just fine. If you don't want to use that, you could use tomato juice. As you saw, I incorporated my marinara sauce and the diced tomatoes, which were loaded with tomato juice, or tomato juice. Okay, so this is what it's going to be like. On and off, I'll just play it. I'll show you when I do actually I'll pull the second bag out and put it inside of the container. Getting rid of the excess water. And if you're curious, how long did it take me to take care of all this? Linda figured out I was 3 hours in the kitchen doing this. So this is a labor of love. It's a way to continue eating fresh from my garden and eating healthy. I don't use any chemicals on my food, which is why I wash them really good. And being vegan, I don't eat bugs because they have a heartbeat. And so I try my very best not to include any aphids or any millipedes or slugs or anything into my cooking. I'm sure that would probably give me extra protein, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after a good, healthy, delicious topping that I can put on top of my own vegetables. And it's gonna have, now I put in the bell peppers a little too early. I normally put the bell peppers at the very end because I like texture, and trust me, by the time this is all done, there won't be any texture left to the bell peppers. So please place those at the very end. Okay, and we're gonna get ready to do the second set, and it's simply as this. You grab a handful, try not to spill it all over the place like I just did, and you've already gone through your leaves. You know they're in good pristine order. There's no discoloration. There's no, these are the best of the best from your garden. You see, I'm just reincorporating them in, and it's just, you're gonna be, there it is, it's right here. It's nice and dark over here. It's gonna be like this. Now I have rainbow chard, I have red chard, yellow chard, white chard, all the different colors you can think of. And just recently, I have grown this delicious red leaf here like this. And it's just truly a magnificent taste to it. That's taken me 2 years to grow that one, and I really loved it. I use it on my salads all the time. So, okay, so we're gonna continue doing this, and when I get close to the end of the bags, I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll go from there. So what it is I have too much sauce. So what I'm using and I've learned this from the past, you put in noodles into the sauce and it thickens it up. And on the other side, I had the same problem. I decided that I would continue. So next thing I'm doing is I also put in Wacky Mac enriched tomato, beet, spinach, macaroni product. Now it's just basically a vegan meal, and I made sure that these don't have eggs in them. They have semolina wheat, durum flour, dried tomatoes, dried beets, dried spinach, ferrous sulfate. I don't know why they have to put iron in it. riboflavin, that's it. And so whenever we buy pasta, we make darn sure that there's no eggs in it, because a lot of your pasta have eggs in it. So I'm really sensitive to eggs and milk nowadays. It's kind of strange. I haven't had any cheese or milk in a long time now. And when I do, or if it's someone gives me a meal and they don't tell me about it, I feel a little nauseous. So I've got to be very careful. And we're going to put the cover back on here. This one here, I'm trying to boil some of the tomato juice. All that was for is to let me know that in 5 minutes the noodles were going to be finished. It takes 6 minutes to boil them. It took me a little while to get them in. So the noodles will be ready. And here we're just going to be trying to boil this down. This is an enormous amount of food for me. I will probably have some of this tonight so I can show you me eating it. This over here, I'm going to continue boiling down and putting this in my freezer bags so that I have lots of meals coming forward. And I just love chard, I love spinach, and I love it best that it comes from my garden, that it hasn't been sprayed with any pesticides. Not that the bugs don't eat their share. I guess I provide a fair portion of the population but I use companion planting. I find ways to keep them safe. Okay, so I'm gonna let this continue cooking. Oh, it makes a wonderful mess of your kitchen. It's a mess all over. Well, I'm gonna show you this final piece right here. I think it's ready to eat. I've been so busy cooking that I forgot to put the herbs in, which I'm going to do right now. 1 tablespoon of basil, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of granulated onions, fresh cumin. Alright, so now we've tasted it. It tastes delicious. What do we do next? Well, what we have to do is we have to let it cool. So I have these huge bowls, and I'm going to put them in service, fill them in, and wait for it to cool down. Now, one way you can do is, if you have enough room in your refrigerator, you could stick it in there, and it might make it a little faster. After that, what we do is, I normally do is, I put them in quart-sized containers, so they lay flat. I don't want any bulging thing, just enough, and then it usually lasts me for about 2 meals. And I put them over my flash frozen vegetables. I have a delicious sauce on top. It makes a really good complete meal. All right, so you can watch me as I do this, and you'll have an idea of what's happening. Okay, so here, I'm just simply grabbing spoonfuls, including the juice, tomatoes base, and I'm putting in there. What I did do different is I added another 2 cups of noodles, so that it would absorb some of the juice, which it did do some of that. This is what I'm having for dinner tonight too. I'm just going to put it on there, and I'll probably take some out and put it in another bowl so it cools quicker. Alright, so the next step, now that it's completely cool, is to simply put it in bags, and this takes a little bit of time. So we're going to start with this one here. It makes a huge mess of the countertop. I've got most of the kitchen cleaned up, but this is, let's see if I can get a larger plate. So what we got? We got 7 of each. 7 of the gluten-free, 7 of the wheat.